So hey guys, thank you for having me. I know you have a translator there, so I know that everybody understands me. Who here speaks English? But you raise your hand. Great. Who doesn't speak English? I'm waiting for the translation. No. Cool. Great. Good test. You're working well. So, hi guys. Yeah, so I was very well introduced, so I don't need to introduce myself anymore. I want to ask you a question. Yay, it works. Everything works. Never happens to me. What's the difference between an ecosystem and a community? Does anybody know? Okay, I know you're not a very cooperative crowd. Maybe somebody wants to know what's an ecosystem. Anybody feel part of the ecosystem of startups in Belarus, in Minsk? Whoever's part of the ecosystem of startups in Belarus? For sure, a few of you. At least two people. Okay. Community, anybody is part of a community? So great, so I really need to create this talk because you don't know the difference. So let's talk about an ecosystem. So an ecosystem is a system that's usually created by also the non-organic, but usually mostly the organic parts of an environment. You have different parts of the environment and all together create a whole ecosystem that create and interact and have reciprocity between each other. But when we talk about a community, we talk about something that I call PLM, people like me. Okay? People that have a lot of similarity that I can really connect. And when we try to define a community, we found there were 3 pillars to create a real strong community. First of all, you have to have a very strong common ground. Okay? A common ground comes either as a need, a passion, or an experience. Many times we can create a community for people that seem not alike at all, but creating a very strong experience. That's usually what we do when we create a company. We imagine or create a purpose, make people go through a process as users, as employees, and then connect them together and make them into a community and make them feel their PLM, feel this is people like me. The second thing we need when we build a community is common space. If people don't have a place to meet, to interact, to be together, they can't really interact as a community. We'll talk about it in a second. And last but not least is facilitation. Community without direction can't really live, can't really sustain, can't really continue. Many times, we call everything a community, but many times it's just an audience. It's people that have the PLM quality. Let's say all Belarusian are one community. All people from Minsk are one community. But how communal is this community? And that's the difference. So everybody has these 3 pillars can be a community. It's usually a potential community. But how communal really are you? And then we go back to an ecosystem. And when we talk about the ecosystem, we see the different communities interact. And we use this example in economics and psychology a lot, that the rabbit eats the grass and the fox eats the rabbit. It's really relevant for the startup ecosystem. Why is it similar? Anybody has a guess? Okay, I'll help. So I sometimes say that the grass and the rabbits are the startups, are the young startups. And the fox is the VC, or the investors. And they really want to have more rabbits. They really want to have more things to eat and feed on. And that's what investors need. If they don't have 500 startups to meet a year and choose 5 out of them, there's no chance they'll be able to create a return for their companies. So that's why exactly when you create a startup ecosystem, you have to teach the fox to invest in the grass. You have to teach the fox that he needs to invest in the rabbit. When we talk about it, we say it's not just about leading or setting an example. It's not about creating an organization with clear hierarchy. It's creating a network of people that anybody can step up and lead. And that's the difference between a regular organization and a communal organization. When you're a communal, everybody's part of it, but anybody tomorrow can say, I want to be part of the leadership. I want to participate. I want to give a bit more back. And by giving a bit more back, you make the whole community stronger. When we start to say what's exactly community and how communal are you, we saw the 5 peaks. It's a journey to become more communal. First of all, to find the shared identity. Find the things that make you work together. What's the commonality between us? Even though if I'm a fox and a rabbit, we both want to see the startup ecosystem grow and work together. Trust. We want to create trust that you don't want just to invest to make money. I have a dream, I have a startup, I want to change the world. I want my investor to be aligned and have trust that you will be with me in the hard times and the good times too. Sharing, mentor them, help them, sharing your knowledge. There's a very deep core about sharing, but we don't have enough time in this talk. Social currency. We see that in very strong ecosystems. People help each other just because, but the reality is that somebody helped them before. And when they help somebody, they help them again. And then somebody passed it on and on and on. And we want to create this cycle of reciprocity, of giving back because somebody gave and then I gave more. And then we create some kind of social currency. Everybody here has money, right? Money is worthless. Money is only worth because you believe that it's worth something. The government gave you money and told you we all believe that it's worth something. We created something and we told, work and I'll give you money. But the government just printed it. Okay? When you think about money, it's all because we believe in money and that's what creates. And if we believe that helping each other is worth something, so we'll help each other and we'll create reciprocity and we'll create that cycle. But very important for the community to continue to live, we have to create layers. We have to be open, exactly like Bianca and Tanya were speaking before me, diversity. We have to be able, not just women, men, and different kind of races. You have to think about diversity, that if I'm a very techie person and I'm a very social person or marketing person, you can be your own layer. We can be all part of one community, but have small layers and small sub-communities within our larger community. And that's the idea. And what we want to create is a communal ecosystem. We want to create an ecosystem of different kind of communities that live together, that have the aspects, the attributes of a community, but really are an ecosystem, that really are collaborating, that really can help and feed on each other and create the future. So, what we're going to talk about today. As we started, a bit about communal ecosystems, about mapping ecosystems, about building an ecosystem, and building a community. So let's start. So the first case study I want to use, see, they didn't change it, no worries. So the first case study you want to use is Beersheba. Anybody heard about Beersheba? Just shows you how hard of an ecosystem it was to build. Beersheba is a very southern city in Israel. Everybody heard about the bombing now and the Gaza Strip and shooting bombs. So Beersheba is one of the cities that's getting hit hard. Okay? So it's a city about an hour and a half in maybe Eastern Europe times. An hour and a half isn't far, but for Israeli mentality, it's almost half a country. So it was a place that when I came to Beersheba, there were only 2 high-tech companies and about 10, 15 startups. But something happened. It was a government effort. It was something that created together, and we're going to talk about the 5 points that made Beersheba in less than 5 years from a place with no high-tech, like a barely 2 small companies and a few startups in the garage, into an ecosystem with over 200 startups and 100 high-tech, strong international companies. So the first thing was aligned interests, co-opetition, collaboration opportunities, joint goals and values, and local initiatives. Let's talk about it. For some reason, I knew it would happen. Great. So, aligned interest. If we talk about the aligned interest, what happened is they created a park, but in the park, who were the investors? Usually we have 2 sides. We have the private sector and we have the government or municipality. But here it was different. Part of the owners in the Beersheba ATP, Advanced Technology Park, is the municipality. They're core partners and they own 30% of the park. 70% is by a private company, and another big part, is also about 30% is by the municipality, 30% is by the university, and the rest of the 40% is the private sector. And in that way, everybody cares about working together. 3 different organizations working together. There's 4, and I'll explain in a second. In the end of the ATP, in the end of the park, on private land, in a private ATP Advanced Technology Park, is going to be risen, it's already started building it, the Army base for technology. So creating the collaboration between the future talent of Israel, which is the technology people that go to the army and do cybersecurity and cyber tech and IT and army infrastructure, working next to the academia and working together with the private sector that built and building companies there, and also building all the infrastructure, and also connecting with the municipality that, as you well know, usually always gives you with the taxes, the infrastructure, the help. They own it. They want it to succeed. They have to make it succeed. They have a part in the success in a really true way. Co-opetition. When the ATP only started, one company came there out of ideology. They saw the future. They saw all the business aspects. They had a really good reason, an incentive of almost 100 million shekels, $30 million. But still, it was very scary to be one of the first big companies, international companies to come. It was Dell EMC. Today, used to be EMC, today it was acquired about 2 years ago for $67 billion. So they came. But then what happened? When IBM came, IBM is one of their biggest competitors, they helped them. They understood that in order to create a strong ecosystem, because they're so small, in order to attract more talent, they need more companies in the park. And even though IBM would fight over talent with them, and we'll talk about why they wouldn't fight a lot, they collaborated and helped them and opened the door and showed them how to help and create part of the ecosystem and help them with different questions, and didn't see them as enemies, but as people that they are in competition, but in co-opetition, working together. One of the things we did when we were in the park and when I was a CEO of WeWork there in the park is we created a CEO forum. All the CEOs, and this was about 3-4 years ago, now it's a larger forum, all the CEOs meet once every 2 months and talk together about their issues, talk about their problems. In all of Tel Aviv, in all of Herzliya and our strong ecosystem, there's no park or region or industrial area that everybody meets together and shares their problem and collaborate. And just the space, creating that space for the community to come and share, creates a huge boost. There's a lot of actually examples of that in Norway and different countries, but it's so simple to do, but so few ecosystems do that. One of the most interesting things they did was a treaty. When they started, when EMC Dell came, or Dell EMC came to the park, they understood that the fight for talent is going to be hard. Most of the companies came because of the future RV move, but also because of the amazing university that we have in Beersheba. Beersheba is the biggest producer of engineers. But they said before a lot of companies come, before we became this huge ecosystem, let's create a treaty. And in Beersheba, there's no headhunting. No company is allowed. Of course, it's really hard to follow it, but you see, because you get a social connection, people don't do it. You're allowed to say there's a job open, but you're not allowed to poke somebody working in another company. And if you do that, you will have social repercussions. And local initiatives. When I was still in a nonprofit working about building Beersheba, a few young guys came and said, we want to create meetups. There were no meetups in Beersheba. And that initiative created a community of over 15,000 people that were involved in tech. And that created a buzz about helping people stay and having a cultural life besides just working in high-tech, talking entrepreneurship, and moving forward. Let's talk a bit about WeWork. While I was working in the nonprofit, helping growing the economic ecosystem, a small company called WeWork was connected to me, and we started talking about, yeah, maybe they'll move to the Negev. And they did the bold move of opening a WeWork where there was no high-tech ecosystem, or a very small one. But what it created was a local hub. It created the space for everybody to connect. It created the network that was the critical mass that suddenly became a place that was legit to open a startup, that an investor can come and see other startups. Because before that, even 20 or 30 startups that maybe an investor would like to come weren't connected, weren't intertwined, didn't have a place to look for information. So suddenly they had a hub to meet, a network to hear information from, and we created an ecosystem. We managed to bring into the space, even though they had enough space of their own, large companies, the university, different organizations and service providers that lived only in Tel Aviv and suddenly took a space in that space. And suddenly we had a lawyer from a top firm in Israel. We had an accountant from the biggest financial management for startups in Israel. And all these small pieces together created a micro ecosystem that made it worthwhile to come into the WeWork and create a hub. And the last part that people also talk about is WeWork a community. So truth to be told, when is a community strongest? When you have a challenge. And because of that, yes, in WeWork Beersheba, it was a very strong community. We didn't have a happy hour, we had a community hour. In all the rest of the WeWorks in the world, we have a happy hour. But here, because it was a real challenge, the community was formed, and it was a very strong one. But also, WeWork did a lot of things correct. We talked about purpose, about common ground, common need, common passions. WeWork always talked about it, and that's why they got this crazy valuation that now just deflated, about the we generation, about the value, about the space, and also they had a very strong facilitation. Well, like we said before, people that take care of the people in the hub. And that's the job we had, and we had the privilege to really not just sell space, but to think strategically. Think, who do you want in the space, and what does the space or the people from the space need? So, we're missing a picture. When we talk about Beersheva, we talk about things we did. Why is the pictures gone? But we had pictures here, you have to believe me, of the local soccer team that we had. The local soccer team took the national championship, so we did an event in that WeWork. It wasn't an event celebrated in every WeWork, but we had a local pride. We did things that are very different. In Tel Aviv, when they sold the WeWork, all the emails were in English, because in Tel Aviv, they're very much like New York. When they came to Beersheva, they started sending email in English. I told them, no, in Beersheva it's an hour drive, but people there only speak Hebrew. So you have to think about the local environment, the local culture. You have to think local when you want to create a community in a new place. Okay, we had a diversity in members that created the different people, the different PLMs that together created an ecosystem, but a communal ecosystem. And we created peak moments. We created events that really made people think or feel they're part of something really strong. We created peak moments, and when we say peak moments, if you remember the community peaks, that create trust, that create sharing, that create reciprocity, and that's what you need to focus on. And also some events to help build new layers. Somebody had an initiative and had to open a new group, a new idea, help them, support them, help them create a new layer for your community, a new layer for your ecosystem. And as we said, we don't want to connect not people just connecting, we want them to have an emotional connection. And that's what you have to invest when you do facilitation. Not just networking, real connecting. And that's what the peak moments do, and that's what you need to think when you're building a community and not just an ecosystem. So let's talk about mapping the ecosystem. The World Bank did a really good work about saying what's the most important parts in the ecosystem. So it's for the people, the talent, the infrastructure, the economic assets, and enabling environment. But is that enough? In 2015, the World Bank revised work and understood there's something very, very important that needs to be invested in. The thing actually that if this is the engine, so that's the oil that creates the engine that can really flow. Because if you have an amazing engine but it doesn't have gas, it doesn't have gasoline, nothing will make it move. And that is networking assets. And today, in all of Europe, EIT, which I'll speak about in a second, is really investing in creating networking assets. Okay, creating a network that creates a lot of collisions. The paper that's cited below talks all the time about the amount of collisions, also in Startup Genome, about collisions between people and how we create more connections, and not just connections that have meaning, that people want to help each other. They don't just say hello and exchange cards. They have a reason and they know why they want to do this reciprocity, this social currency between people. So the first part I want to talk about when you map that ecosystem is what we did with Startup Nation Finder. Anybody heard about that? Even if you heard, you probably wouldn't raise your hand, but try to say okay. So Startup Nation was a book, and then somebody opened a nonprofit to help the startups in Israel. And what they found that to really help people, you have to know where they are. And they started mapping, and they created a map of all the different companies, all the startups, all different investors, all different hubs, all different multinationals and academic technology institutes that work together in order to create that collaborations. In order to create the communal ecosystem and get people together, you have to connect. But there was one thing that we found out together, that hubs is not enough. Hubs is just a place where people meet, but you have to create something stronger if you want to create a community. So one of the things that I'm actually showing you that's not even online yet, it's going to be online only in 2 months from now, was going to be the Tech Community Index. Hubs is going to have a sub index about the tech communities, because people who build communities are people that are very strong connectors. They're usually connected to the different kind of investors, founders, professionals, alumni of organizations. And that tech community is going to be not just a networking asset that's very general and we need and it's important. It's going to be the place that you will find already the people that are living networks, that have the networks of their own. And if you need to find a company, you don't need to look at 6,000 companies and choose one. You can talk to those connectors that have the best information, most relevant, and not just a network, but a real community that's live and living and breathing. Another thing we did when we talk about networking assets and mapping your community is a project. This is a picture from yesterday. I just came from Amsterdam, and then we did a second meeting with the ecosystem leaders we have here from Hungary, from Portugal, from, of course, Amsterdam. We have from the UK. We have here people from Ireland. And they got an idea that they need to do a hub or delegation of people from different ecosystems and connect them together. And what we did in these 2 days, we talked about community mindset, about tools of creating stronger communities, about how to create methodologies that can really empower the communities, how to really use it. We talked about sharing knowledge. Anyway, this knowledge is ours. And we say in Hebrew that if you light a candle and you light another candle from your light, you don't lose anything. You're both lit and you both have fire on you. Why not do it? Why not share more knowledge? Find more opportunities and create opportunities to share knowledge. Each one of them set goals. Many times in your own community, it's really hard. And when you set goals together, you map more things. You can see, and everybody can know what's happening in the ecosystem, and you can map it better. And here we talked about an ecosystem of ecosystems, about the whole of Europe. Overcome challenges together. Of course, after you set the goals, how can we really help each other? So if we get together, first of all, we can map them. And the second of all, when we want to create a real living map, we have to get together and create events and create different delegations that get all the ecosystem leaders together to create that map and making it more alive. So why we want to build an ecosystem? How do we do it? So this is exactly what our company does. We did with the mapping. We did it with Startup Nation Central. We're doing it now with EAT in many ways. But with EAT more so, we did workshops. And the workshops really started moving. Execution. The workshops, we even started in Israel with a delegation that came. The same delegation came 2 months before. And there was such a strong connection. They asked for more information. And we did a gathering again in Amsterdam. That was the last 2 days ago. And when we did execution, they said, let's do an alumni organization. So it just was founded, and we had the delegation in September, and already we executed an alumni organization, which is a type of a community. And now we need to cultivate. We need to see they're still there. We need to have somebody facilitating. The facilitator is exactly the person that's created the cultivation. Execution can be done in many ways. It can be done by having a local index and really working about doing it, about creating a leadership program. It can be about creating events and special projects. But my favorite, and exactly what we're doing at ISCL now, is acceleration program based on the power of community. So let's talk about building communities. I'm missing an M there. So when we started working, we did an event. An event brought all the community leaders. But we understand there's 2 sides of community leaders. There's the people in the startups and the startup professionals, and there's the people in the multinational companies. And we help both of them. We come and we work with the companies and we do an initial analysis. Which communities do you already have existing? Which networks are already connected, and we just need to do digital life for them? We just need to come and find which connections are already strong, already have a strong PLM, and have a very strong potential for ROI, return on investment. Which community would we invest in? And wouldn't be just fun, wouldn't be just a good thing and thing to show others. It would be something that in the end of the day, in the end of the year, would help in sales, will help with R&D, would help with product feedback, would help with marketing. What kind of community would really help our ecosystem, and we could measure that change? Then we start working on it. We don't just do strategy. Day one, after we did the initial analysis, we start executing. And the strategy, especially with community, because it's people, it's a living organism. It's not an algorithm that you change something and just see it working. It's human beings, and you have to do the execution very early so you can feel that your strategy is right. But once we find that formula, we start growing. We start creating a team. We start creating training that's relevant for that specific organization. And we grow it, and then we have already a living organism and facility that facilitates the community, and we just need to stick around for cultivation and crisis management. We humans are really hard to manage. So it's really good that you have somebody that if you have crises and things that become emotional, you can really manage it. These emotions, who knows how many % of our decisions are emotion-based? 95%. 95% of our decisions, look at Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman, Nobel Prize winner. 95% of our decisions are based on System 1. You have so many books talking about it, and it's a great thing. So if you have a way to connect the community, create emotional connections, emotional networks, so you have people much more motivated. But emotions can backfire, and that's why you have to be always sure that you're cultivating and crisis management around the community, and you have somebody facilitating that community In many ways, I always say that the difference between marketing and community, that marketing is just fuel. You put fuel in the car, and you get 100 leads. You put $100 from Facebook, you get 20 leads. With community, it takes a lot of time. It's like nuclear energy. It's really hard to start. It needs a lot of physicists and helping, but once you have nuclear energy, you just need to make sure it doesn't bomb and doesn't ruin and doesn't explode. It's a lot of energy, and you just need to contain it. So one of my favorite talks is about the most important investor in a startup, and that's, of course, your users and your employees. And if you build a community of users and a community of employees, they'll invest more in your startup. In the end, all these startups, what they do, they come and they say, okay, here's a great idea, let's find an investor. And they start running after investors. And what do the investors do? They come and say, oh, show me users, show me growth, show me employees working, show me a product. And you do the same mistake by saying, oh, I'll find somebody that will believe in me. Instead of looking for true believers and investors that only look for the money and look for managing risk, look for the people that really want to invest in you. Look for employees or people that want to volunteer with you and help you in the beginning. Look for users that really want to help that idea and really want your product to work. If you manage, and we have different methodologies to creating communities, that you find a community that will help your company, it's not only future users, your users many times become your employees. And we saw it with many startups we helped. So instead of being startups that just look for money, look for the real investors, which is your community, your users and your future employees, the people that have potential to really move your startup forward. Thanks, guys. I was Mike Silberg. That was my lecture. We have a bit of time. Thank you so much. A bit of time for questions, Q&A. I was asked to do a short Q&A. Anybody wants to ask a question? Great. Translator, everybody heard? Okay, take it away, MC. Thanks, guys.